But it's great to meet you. You're a man of many talents, and I want to begin our conversation with surviving the last 4 years. We're getting on the anniversary, or more specifically, probably the last couple of years or so. How did you get through the pandemic, and how did it subsequently change you?
I spent the pandemic basically cloistered in our house, my wife and I. It gave me plenty of time to get this book out, nevertheless, so I could write most of the day. We didn't socialize. I mean, seriously, we did not go out. And that lingered way beyond when people started going back. My wife is an artist. We both work out of home, so we didn't have a commute to deal with. We didn't have to be around anybody. And so we just continued being isolationists for quite a while. And then slowly we came back. Both of us, fortunately, got COVID later, after we'd had the first booster shots. So for us, it was pretty mild. I spent one hellish day in bed and that was it. I was
Wow.
done. So I was really thrilled with that. And fortunately, our neighbor is a pulmonologist, who works at the hospital treating lung cases. And he was actually voted Man of the Year because of his contribution to the COVID crisis. So uh, having that sort of neighbor, you get the right advice, and he said, You're fine. You don't have to worry about it." So that
So,
was what we did.
yeah. So you are the creator of the virtual dinner party. You're a marketer and an author. But if I was to boil this down to brass tacks and put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
I'm a writer.
Okay.
That's the answer. That's my life right now, and has been for quite a while.
So let's find out how we got here. Where were you born and raised, and how did this desire and drive to write, how did it become you?
Gradually is the answer. I was born in South Africa. I was raised in a very liberal family. So my mother was a unique person. She could speak like four African languages, which is a lot of well, a lot of white people couldn't speak any African languages. And my dad was a professor, and he read to us from the classics at a very young age. I have three older sisters, so I began to really appreciate words and sentences at a pretty young age. And I was reading adult novels when I was 10, because my parents were reading them. You started off with, I'm not sure if you know the British series Biggles, but that was an adventure series for kids.
Yeah.
And I wore that out pretty quickly. I just consumed those books and then moved on to the adult novels. And I read the Iliad when I was 13. I mean, just consumed books. So um, that took a sidestep when I got out of university and went into the workplace because that was not going to pay the bills. So I needed to take a job, and I did when I came to this country, and I ended up in the broadcast industry. And while I was doing that, moving my way up at Disney, I was there for 15 years, left there when I was vice president. Um, I started writing tentatively. I had been writing bad poetry for years, not showing it to anybody. But when I seriously got my teeth into my first novel, I was picking away at it at night and in the morning, 1 hour a day. Oh, sorry, 2 hours a day in the morning and the evening. And eventually, it came a point where I said, I need to commit to this or and get this done, and I did while I was working like a 70-hour week, and that was not sustainable. So when I got onto the next novel, I began to I I resigned and decided to see if I could make a go of it with keeping my day job as basically an investor in the stock market. And I've been fortunate to be able to make a living doing that while I write.
So talk to me a little bit about who has been a hero, an inspiration for you in your life.
Um, John Irving, I read The World According to Garp when I was like 12 years old, and I was smitten with it. I just thought it was the funniest and most entertaining book, and it was I'd ever read. And I moved on from there. But recent, I don't stick to one particular subject or particular genre, so I move around. Last year, I read The Silent History um, by Donna Tartt, who's a very eclectic writer. Um, and I like to read that kind of author because they're literary. I just finished off um, Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver.
Yeah.
Um, what a brilliant novel. I mean, it took me to the depths of despair, watching this character, this boy, um, go through the hell that he went through in the Appalachian Mountains and with drugs and all the rest of it. And then she takes you and she raises you up, and it becomes a wonderful story of redemption. Just a genius writer. I think she's absolutely wonderful.
I loved the world according to Garp when I was a kid. It shaped so many notions in me. And then later on, in fact, my cousin who lived in Long Island in my 20s introduced me to A Prayer for Owen Meany, and that was amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and it seems like, books never get captured right on film, but it seemed like they did pretty good with those, with kind of capturing the essence of what was going on.
yeah, yeah. They did a
Yeah.
good job.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now, interview them, spend some time with them, who would that be?
Um, Good question. I think um, I think it'd be Barack Obama, frankly,
Yeah.
just because he's such an orator. He's got such a balanced view of the world, um, regardless of whether he is Democrat or Republican. He still is a thinking human being,
Yeah.
and he cares, and I just admire him enormously.
I'm reading the book by Michelle Obama now, and it's in the beginning of their courtship and kind of his beginnings and how admired he was, even when he was just an apprentice at a law firm. And it's just,
Yeah,
with the clownery that we're dealing with our American political system now, the fact that he is such a shining example, and the only real gripe anybody had was that he wore a tan suit one day, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. He is such a shining example of who a president should be
Yeah.
and was. So I think it's terrific. His memoir I listened to in audiobook, and he narrated it himself, and it was a wonderful
Yeah.
experience.
Was it The Audacity of Hope?
No, it was his memoir, his presidential years
Oh, okay.
up until when he left office.
Okay.
So there's a new one. There's a volume two coming out later this year, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah. I need to catch that one then. Yeah.
It's wonderful, and he
Yeah.
and his narration, being such an orator himself,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, he just read it beautifully.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So every day you wake up, we have drives and motivations. What's that drive and motivation, not only for you to write and create the stories, but to evolve as a human?
Uh, in a word, to communicate with the world, and I like to do that through my writing because that's, I think, what I can do better than anything else. So my motivation every day is to write something, even if it's a few words, but to move the story forward. and to write in such a way that people truly understand what I'm getting at, not just the sentences, but the subtext of the sentences and what the story means to them.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Um, Finish what you start. If you say you're gonna write a novel, then finish the process. Don't just finish the novel. Finishing and writing means, in my opinion, and according to this person who told me this, getting it out there, because you need to have been read to call yourself a writer. You need to get yourself out there. And that's why I didn't wait around for an agent to pick me up or anything. I put it out there on Amazon, and I've been doing that ever since.
So, of all of your books and stories, what's been the best fan letter you've gotten?
I have some wonderful reviews, and I think the one that really comes to mind is somebody that I knew vaguely, and we parted, from a previous career, and she had read 3 of my books, and she said, one thing that I love about Geoffrey Wells's writing is that I always learn something, and that the character, the protagonist, keeps bugging me for weeks afterwards. And I thought, that's what I want.
That's it.
That's exactly what I want. So it was great.
That's awesome. So you're an adventurous sort of guy. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history, where are you going to go?
Um, One event in human history. I think it would be um, the takeoff, witnessing the takeoff of the first airplane.
Yeah.
In the Midwest with, I mean, just a piece of machinery and some rags around a framework was able to lift itself into the air. And of course, it was so significant for the civilization.
Few summers ago, my wife loves Amelia Earhart. The town that she grew up in, which is up here in Atchison, Kansas. And it's a really good looking town. It's right on the river. They got a great bridge and they have a big festival. Well, we went up there and we went in the house and it's a shrine and it was so cool because I hadn't really taken aviation in that manner and to see the beginnings of it and her ambition and how all the blocks were stacked against her. It was wild.
Oh, amazing. And I think I saw recently that they believe they actually found her plane.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I didn't delve into the article, but that would be very interesting. Yeah, she was wonderful.
Yeah, I think she's going to be like DB Cooper. I think we're going to have all of these strings that we're always going to grab on, no matter what happens. Or it's going to be like JFK, like what really happened. We're always going to have these layers of theories.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. The various points of view and the way she sort of has invaded like a legend,
Yeah,
into everybody's lives.
yep. We're all like a bunch of cats. We're just edged on curiosity. We just want to figure it all out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, so of all of these things that you've done and accomplished, and coming to America and being an author and living these dreams, what are you the proudest of? What ultimately boils to the top?
Um, I think what was to the top is that I did not come to America with much. I did not have a lot of money. I did have parents who were already here, but I was already 30 years old. So I left. I, I left after I arrived. I went to Los Angeles with a couple of $100 in my pocket, hoping to make something. And I worked a lot of, I did a lot of shitty jobs. I worked diners and waited tables, and um, I worked in the movie industry and doing, really gopher jobs like sweeping underneath highways to clear out, the mess so they could film there, that sort of, and eventually gradually worked myself up into um, working for promotional companies because I'd been in advertising in South Africa. And so I got back into that world and I worked through my career. I learned the technology and I ended up here. And here being living at home, able to make a living by myself from investments as well as my books, and embrace the technology required to be an independent publisher. So it's not just about writing. I use my graphics background, I use my promotional background, so it's all manifested into what I do today, and I'm pretty proud of that.
So what do you miss about South Africa? What's the one thing you miss the most?
The Drakensberg Mountains,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful range. I spent some time climbing um, with a friend. We climbed Giant's Castle, um, just two kids with a backpack, and went up to the top. And there's something about the climate. There's something about the mist in the valleys and the grasslands over those hills going up to the foothills of the cliffs that is so bewitching. I um, I love that part of that world. It's just beautiful.
There's a term I heard recently or a saying where when you're inside the peanut butter jar, you can't see the label. And I think sometimes Americans are in that boat. We don't really realize what we got going on here. So what do you like the
Yeah.
best about coming to this country and being here?
Um, it is true what they say. In America, it is there for you to make of it what you will. And if you're not willing to embrace it completely, it's just so much harder. So it's still a wonderful country filled with problems, but over and above that, there's this feeling of optimism and feeling that the American citizen still has a shot at having a good life and being able to build a good life. And that's certainly true for me. And I think that optimism can perpetuate itself into the future, provided we as citizens are responsible and vote and take part in our democracy. So I think that's the beauty of America.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, Jeffrey, family, friends, your readers, but ultimately you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a thinking human being, who tries to figure things out. Um, my perception of who I am is somebody who is always grappling with trying to understand something, trying to learn something new. Um, and that propels itself into my writing. And I think what I think of myself is that what I write has some significance, has some meaning.
So if anyone out there wants to pick up your books, learn more about you, reach out, anything about your world, where can they go?
They can go to jeffreywellsfiction.com. That's my website. And every link that you want is on that site. My name is spelled not like the American. It's Geoffrey, Wells, Weewells, and fiction, all one word.com. And that's where they should go.
I love it, Jeffrey. I'm so glad this worked out. No, go ahead.
And of course, I'm on Amazon as well. So.
Okay, cool. Excellent. I am so glad this worked out. This was delightful. Jeffrey, thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck. Have a great year.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take care.